Which beast is really the best in War and Order? There are 4 to choose from, and so today I'm going to give you the advice that I really kind of wish I had when I first started playing the game. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and this video is sponsored by the makers of War and Order, and today I want to give you some advice about choosing a beast for the early to mid game, and that's where I would say I am right now, squarely in the mid game. I've got my beast up to level 20, which feels like a pretty major accomplishment. However, the beasts can go much higher levels, unlocking a bunch of talents and more. But let's start with the choice of beast that you make, and I want to rank these. And weirdly enough, I kind of want to give a tie for the beast that's in first place, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Now, I will argue that the least powerful beast is probably this one here, which tragically was the one that I started with. Now, the majority of what your beasts do are actually going to be the same. If you look, the first skill, the sort of active skill, on every single beast is actually the same, weirdly enough. So the only thing you need to think about when you're choosing a beast initially is the second skill and what does that do. And that has a little bit of variation in what your beast is actually going to do for you. Now, this one does area of effect damage. So as you can see very briefly on the screen, summons a rain of fire that attacks all enemies every 13 seconds. Now, that's kind of cool, but it's not that much damage in the grand scheme of things, and I think the utility you can find on other beasts is better. So if I were starting all over again, this is not the beast I would probably pick. The number 2 beast, in my opinion, is the Panda. Now, I'm going to talk about how you could actually use him in a way that is more oppressive and what you would need to get that done. But he makes your front line more tanky. Every 13 seconds, raise the defense of your front line by 18.6% for a duration of 5 seconds. The downfall of using this beast is that your front line needs to actually live for 13 seconds. And if you watch your battle replays, you may find that often your front line gets pretty wrecked by the time that 13 seconds rolls around. Now, there is something you can do if you are spending in the game that is a really OP combo, in my opinion, when combined with this Panda over here, which is that, and this is maybe going to sound a little advanced for newer players, but there is this artifact, Athena's Aegis. If you're going all in, and you know for sure you want to do this on like an infantry mage plan, or in the very least, you just care all in on infantry, certainly, then you can go for this item, and once you really power it up, I mean, take it to 3 stars, and you evolve it to unlock its special ability, it gives you a shield for the first, 10 seconds of battle. So this would actually enable you to live for the first 10 seconds, and then, after 13 seconds have elapsed, boom, your Panda is giving you more front row tankiness. That actually seems like a really wicked combination. And combine that also, by the way, over here with your totems. This is something that is more advanced. I believe it's Castle 26 when you unlock your totems. But there is also a totem that will give your front row a shield, which is pretty wild. So if we get a look here, the Spirit of Order will launch the guard for ally troops 9 seconds after the battle starts, prioritizing the front row. So if you really went all in and you use the Panda, you use this shielding totem, and you use the Aegis for shields, theoretically, for some fights, you would just have some absolutely astronomic front row tankiness. So although I haven't rated the Panda as well, you honestly can do great stuff with it. You just need a lot of setup from what I've seen in order to make that happen. A little bit easier to use, and I will say this is kind of tied for first, is the Pegasus, unicorn combination. This beast is powerful because it makes it so your back row troops get more attack. Well, guess what? You are probably going to have your back row last for at least the 13 seconds to get the full benefit of that extra damage. So I like how easy it is to use this. And if your front row isn't lasting 13 seconds, I mean, you're getting so wrecked, it doesn't even matter anyways. Neither this beast nor the Panda honestly would have made any difference in how that fight was going to go. So I like the extra damage. I also think extra damage is pretty solid for PvE. I generally prefer being able to crank out more damage perhaps than having a little bit more tankiness. So I think this would be my #1 recommendation for a new player. If we were doing this all over again, this would be the beast I would choose. But don't worry, you can change your beast once for free. And you can change again later if you really wanted to. Now, I said there was another beast that kind of tied for first, and that is the one that I'm using right now, and that is the Pegasus. Now, I happen to have a beast skin. This is one of the things that you're able to unlock later down the road with a certain horse racing event, weirdly enough. And this lets you sort of customize the stats and function a little bit of your beast even more beyond the sort of baseline capabilities. But this, I said, was going to be an early to mid-game guide, and I don't want to get way into the evolutions and these other choices that you will be better able to make for yourself by the time you actually get to that mid and late game. This is really more of a beginners-oriented guide. Now, the reason I like this beast, if you are spending money in the game, is that it has a third skill. Let me explain. Although the other beasts were doing buffs, the ones that I really liked, the Panda and the Pegacorn, the second skill on the Phoenix is going to launch a strike with the power of rebirth on all enemies in the back row. So you're taking out the enemy damage dealers. I like that. I think that's a pretty solid ability. But it also comes with a third base level skill that you can upgrade. This is the pay-to-win aspect of this particular beast because you have to get Phoenix Ashes, which I've found you can get from events, but it's rarely available as a choice. And so the majority of how you would get this is through spending. And what it will do is boost your angel attack. And for those of you not familiar with angels, those are the most powerful unit in the game. Card will be up in the top if you want to check out a detailed video about angels. Although you probably won't be worried about angels in your first 3 to 4 weeks of playing if you're brand new to the game. By the time you get a little bit further in, angels do become extremely important, which is where the next two sort of abilities here become very important. It improves the ratio of killed troops that are converted into Guardian Force, also known as Angel Dust, also known as what you need to recruit your angels. So in order to get angels, you have to have troops die. Troops dying gives you dust, or Guardian Force, as it were. So you get more Guardian Force with this beast from the same number of troops dying. And there is a limit to how much Guardian Force you can collect daily because Guardian Force is that important. It's that good. And the amount of Guardian Force you can collect daily also goes up from this skill. So this is why I think this beast is a solid choice. I don't know, though, if I would say it's astronomically better, or even much better, or even better, perhaps at all, than using the Pegacorn. However, if you're into angels and you're really working on having those, and you're putting them in situations also where your angels can die, which is something I've avoided up to this point, because I don't even have the max number of angels yet, then this beast seems extremely important to have in your roster. Now, with regard to beast skills that you choose at the beginning of the game, there are actually a few that seem like really obviously good choices. And it's actually these 3 skills that you see right over here, especially if you're going free to play. I think these are very solid, boosting your attack, boosting your health, and also boosting the number of troops that you can bring. This actually is pretty major. The force expansion lets me bring more troops, and having more troops is so crucial for both PvE and PvP style events. The Star Ruins, which if you're not familiar with that, you'll just have to take my word for it that having more troops is really, really good. With one exception. And this is why I worked on Force Expansion last, compared to the other 2 abilities I'm recommending, which are Attack Expert and Life Source. And I worked on Force Expansion last because there are some situations you will find yourself in where having more troops is not actually all that beneficial. Now, not everyone will be in this situation, and you won't even be there all the time. But as one example, we have an event going on right now. It happens every week where you attack the Dark Abyss, and you can bring all your troops. So working on a skill that would give you more troops doesn't matter, because this lets you bring every troop you have anyways. But there are other situations where you're reinforcing something, and your alliance is already going to fill this thing up, okay? So for example, some things that you reinforce have a limited capacity. If I take you to our castle, every time the Crown War comes around, we fill up our castle and hold the crown and try to defend it. Well, there's a limit to the number of troops that can be in this castle. So if I bring more troops, that's great that I brought more troops, but we were going to fill this either way. So if I'm one of the initial people filling up the castle, it's better off if I actually have a skill that benefits me when I'm fighting somebody else rather than having more troops, because this was going to be full anyways. It's my troops, it's somebody else's troops, it's going to be full. And the people who are online watching, they're the ones who want to have the extra, march size, so that when they reinforce, if it gets attacked, they've got a bunch of troops they're bringing to the fight on top of the absolute max capacity, which can go into something like the Alliance Castle. Now, in that regard, there are probably a number of these skills that I would be really interested in working on, and I sort of regret some of my other choices, and I'll explain that in just a second here. But if I show you what other options you could have, what you could have is some of the following skills. For example, when troops are attacked by angels, damage taken is reduced by 2%. When troops are attacked by mages, reduce the damage you take. When troops are attacked by archers, reduce the damage you take. For troops attacking angels, damage is increased. I mean, this goes on. Anti-infantry, for troops attacking infantry, for troops attacking cavalry, and so on. I find that there are a lot of mage players out there. Like, a ton of people use infantry, and a ton of people use mages. I feel like resist magic would just be super wicked, like very strong. Reducing the damage you take from mages seems really, really good. I sort of wish I had invested in that. Also, I mean, I really like anti-infantry, increasing the damage dealt to infantry. For me personally, as someone who is reinforcing that castle, as I was describing, and trying to live as long as possible to stall for basically my allies to arrive and reinforce, I feel like the damage taken reduction for mages actually would be, as an example, just like a really great choice. But when I didn't know what I was doing, sort of in the very beginning of the game, I picked some other things that I would say have served me pretty decently, and let me explain. Increasing the wounded limit is pretty decent, although the base level of this ability is like 13,000 troops. So when I go to bed at night, I swap over to the wounded limit increase, and that I find to be really nice. I've increased this to level 6, but I think the base level was like 13% hospital capacity increase, which I guess that's more than 13k. It's really good. That's actually really solid. And I also have Vigor Star, which is decreasing the recovery time for each point of my Beast Vigor. If you're newer to the game, Beast Vigor is what you need to actually use your Beast when you send out for attacks. It's 30 Vigor every time you hit another player's city, or it's 5 Vigor if you're just going and fighting monsters. So Vigor Recovery just seemed like a way to get more Beast experience, so I went for that kind of early on, which, I mean, it's been fine. And then this over here, increase the experience from defeating monsters. That's one of the other abilities I kind of invested in early, and I figured that is probably going to be worth its weight, and I think it generally has been pretty good, actually. It's a little bit of a pain to be swapping between all these things all the time, but equipping it is definitely worth. And I still have a ton of action point potions that I've got to just burn through during an event, but that is generally a lot more slow going than I expected it would be. I'll be honest, you could even make a dedicated video for each one of these beasts, going in depth over the beast talents and the beast skins that unlock as you get further and further in your progression. But I just wanted to create this video initially to give you a sense of, hey, if you're new to the game, which beast should you pick? And if you picked something and you're feeling like, oh man, I picked something and now I wish I had something else, you can do a free reset one time, Or, I mean, there's a gem cost, but you do that once and then you're good to go for the foreseeable future. I swapped from the Drake to the Phoenix, and I kind of haven't looked back. And there really only is one of these skills, two, I suppose, with the Phoenix, that is really relevant anyways. If you're bringing your beast out of your city, the majority of is what you're kind of customizing with those passive skills. So once you get access to more of those and start to level up, that's really where the customization starts to take place, as well as the beast talents. But that happens much further, certainly, than the early game. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, do me a huge favor. Throw a like on here. Consider subscribing to the channel for more War and Order videos designed to help you get value and smash your enemies. Our realm has been progressing pretty well, although we are kind of in a state of like constant civil war, which is a little bit weird. That doesn't mean that everybody's getting attacked every day, but like it's just, I don't know. You always have to worry if you're going to get zeroed. Okay, which is interesting. It definitely keeps you on your toes. And until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies.